Hey everyone, and welcome back to another roundup. This should be a good one. So the finger pointing is continuing over Doom Eternal's Scuffed to Hell soundtrack, but there might actually be some hope on the horizon, which is pretty good stuff. Then, Epic Games, they have finally surrendered in their long-standing feud with Google, but they are not going down quietly. Then Sony apparently may have been caught off guard by the Xbox Series X, but there might be a bit more drama to that story than meets the eye, plus a whole bunch else. Now, do you want to help us out? Get some loot, get the daily briefing, and make content like yesterday's State of Take-Two Interactive deep dive possible? Well, if so, Patreon's the place. The daily briefing gives you all of the gaming news in one place, and our loot tier is just that. It's a big old chunk of fantasy-themed loot straight from our Game Studios art team, and seriously, it helps us out a bunch right now especially, so big thank you to everyone for your support, and with that, let's get going. One of this week's biggest stories has been the apparent falling out between Mick Gordon and either id Software or Bethesda. We don't really know exactly. And since we first covered that story, a little bit more has happened. Now, to quickly catch you up on it, right, Doom Eternal's original soundtrack released this week, and it raised many eyebrows for its extremely subpar mixing. Mick Gordon confirmed that he only mixed a handful of tracks, and the rest were supposedly handled by id's audio director, Chad Mossholder. Just that, I mean, when you looked at it, man, the soundtrack sucked. I mean, it's an incredible, musical soundtrack, but the mixing just ruined it. And if you don't know why that would really tick people off, the Doom 2016 and Eternal soundtrack is iconic and beloved. Now, while people have been, kicking off about Gordon being sidelined here, it's not uncommon for composers to not be involved in mixing and mastering. Often they're just so close to their music that they need an external mixer to come in. But that said, Gordon, he was licensed to create the music, but not necessarily actually mix it or be involved for the entire time. However, Mick Gordon did mix Doom 2016's soundtrack himself, and it is revered as one of the greatest game soundtracks ever, and just a stellar album, incredible heavy metal in its own right. Now, to get to the newer stuff, so Gordon had been working with another engineer who told VG247 that they actually had a plan to get the project done in time, but once the radio silence kicked in, he knew something was not right behind the scenes. So, that brings us to today. Why did all of this happen? Well, it seems like, it is just timing and very bad decision-making from Bethesda. Who would have guessed? The soundtrack was supposed to release alongside the game, but Bethesda admitted that it would not be ready in time. They confirmed, though, that they were working on plans to deliver that soundtrack to people as soon as was possible after the release. And it seems like as soon as possible really is the problem here. Gordon and co. were due to finish working on this by late March, but it seems that something delayed what they were doing, and that Bethesda then just took it into their own hands, grabbed whatever Gordon had finished, whatever he had finished mixing, and then just did the rest themselves, and fired it out the door. And to that end, they did a terrible job. Nobody is happy. Fans are left disappointed, and Mick Gordon's years of work were disrespected at the finish line. That's what the engineer said. There may be hope, though, here, because there are rumors that a Mick cut of the Eternal soundtrack is actually something that could be there, and they seem to be confirmed by Gordon himself. So, fingers crossed, there's light at the end of the tunnel, and this actually will turn out good in the end. And next up, we've got a far larger scuffle. So, after 18 months of stubbornness, Epic Games have finally given in, and they've added Fortnite to the Google Play Store. Now, the two initially fell out over Google's 30% rev share, but here's the kicker. Epic have consistently argued that this is, quote, illegal in the case of a distribution platform with over 50% market share. Now, they'd been operating Fortnite actually outside the Google Play Store ever since. Now, Epic may have changed their tune in this, but they are certainly not happy about it, and they're not going down quietly. The official reason is that Google puts disadvantages on apps that operate outside of Google's own marketplace, the Play Store. Epic cites, quote, scary, repetitive security pop-ups as one such measure, as well as Google characterizing, quote, third-party software sources as malware, which is obviously not good if you're Epic. It also mentions new initiatives such as Google Play Protect, which, quote, outright block software obtained outside the Google Play Store, which is, of course, where Google get their 30% rev share. In short, Epic aren't happy, and they do have a point here. On the one hand, they very much did compromise their principles by crawling back to Google, but it's not like they've got a choice, and that's kind of their point with them trying to say that Google have got a monopoly. Google's enormous market share already puts them in this commanding position, but the new measures that Google have implemented that are sort of designed to require apps to be operating within the Google Play Store and under Google's, of course, rev share, that essentially does create a bit of a monopoly, right? And Epic are obviously not happy about that. Epic said that they hope that Google will, quote, revise its policies and business dealings in the near future. But that somehow does not seem likely to me. I mean, come on, Google have got no reason to do that. And when you go back to Epic's situation, I mean, man, they really must have felt like they had to do this, because in doing this, they gave up 30% of Fortnite's mobile revenue. That is massive, and that does show the strength that Google has here. They really did manage to quash Epic's rebellious spirit there. Still, the extent of Google's monopoly, I mean, it is a bit scary there, right? As is the prospect of feeling sorry for Epic sometimes. But, you know, this is something we're seeing across industries. And if you'd like some further reading on a similar topic here, just take a look at Spotify versus Apple Music and, the App Store platform advantage and all the reasons why for the longest time you couldn't actually buy Kindle books or stuff on Prime Video on, on the App Store on your phone because, well, of the rev share stuff. And actually Amazon recently did change in that, but that whole thing and the idea of these walled gardens basically being sort of program monopolies or, program acquisition monopolies, it's quite an interesting situation, and I mean, certainly something for companies like Epic is real bad. Of course, for Epic, they're championing 88/12 as their rev share, and being real, that is far more realistic and far more in line with the value actually provided on those stores to the devs. But yeah, I think a developing story. We'll have to see if Google actually comment here, because Epic are pretty darn loud, a pretty big voice. Yeah, I mean, a sucky story. Overall, I do actually have my sympathies with Epic here because, I mean, yeah, the Google stuff, the way that they're trying to quash the outside of the store stuff, don't like that one bit. And bloody hell, we're moving from drama to drama today because a former PlayStation dev has claimed that the Xbox Series X is a beast compared to the PS5. So this guy, Chris Granell, who spent almost 14 years at PlayStation, he worked in titles like Wipeout, he suggested that, Sony were, quote, caught off guard by Microsoft's power advantage moving into this next gen. Now, he did earn some notoriety last month when he called the power gulf between the two consoles staggering on social media. That really did kind of explode on him. Now, elaborating on those comments in a recent RDX podcast, Granell basically said he believes that Sony kind of rested on their laurels with the PS5, that their massive market share with the PS4 basically just made them complacent and led to them kind of doing a PS3, which is, I mean, it seems like a weird take to me. But the most interesting part is that devs across the industry are actually talking more about how they're excited about the PS5, not the Xbox, citing the SSD speed and the preference for Sony's API work. So it basically seems like this guy is he's either the only one speaking the truth or he's simply being a contrarian. It's kind of hard to know. We will just have to see the results. Now, also, with console news, and speaking of Microsoft, there is a rumored hardware event in May, and that could actually unveil Project Lockhart. Now, this is a cheaper, less powerful Series S that is designed to be more accessible entry-level Xbox, which is presumably why Microsoft are casually phasing out the Xbox One X. Now, there is a bit of a fear here because if this then became the lowest common denominator of the generation, then much of, say, the power of the PS5 and the Series X would be kind of wasted if the multi-platform games then had to account for the worse hardware, especially if that also means a worse SSD. So, yeah, I mean, if they ship with, less features or even a solid, a spinning hard drive, that could be a black mark in the generation, but again, we will just have to wait and see. And do you want even more drama? Because there's more. Square Enix, right, they're issuing copyright strikes against any channels that upload footage of the apparently controversial ending of Final Fantasy VII Remake. A lot of videos have already been hit, though there are some that are live for the time being. An interesting situation, but yeah, they supposedly will go far enough to actually pursue legal action against anybody who challenges the copyright strikes that they actually see on their YouTube dashboard. Now, a letter alleging to be from Square's legal team is doing the rounds on Twitter, and it's basically warning content creators against posting embargoed content. The thing is, though, the authenticity of that letter is really hard to verify, and it does kind of look suspicious, because it's got typos, it's got strange wording, And it's just kind of hard to imagine any legal document, even one originating like from a non-English speaking country, having wording like, if you are unwilling to do this thing. It's just a bit weird. I mean, unless the lockdown in Japan has got them relying on Google Translate or something, I don't know, it seems a bit fishy. So either that email is authentic and Square really are not messing around, or someone is just really, really mad at the ending. It's kind of hard to know. Of course, that said, things like this do happen, like Atlas, that's another Japanese dev, and they very much dislike people spoiling their games on streams. So yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a backwards attitude for, just how stuff works, the internet, but I mean, look at what Nintendo were like. Yeah, we just kind of do expect strange treatment of internet-related social media things from Japanese companies, and I think that's something that's just going to, well, continue. I mean, the idea, like, if this is a controversial ending and people actually post that ending and maybe they want to talk about it, then, that being taken down because of what the footage is, yeah, that does not really, that doesn't seem good to me whatsoever. Anyway, moving on, well, another month, another super data report, and it's estimating that Animal Crossing New Horizons sold 5 million digital copies in March. New Horizons is by far Nintendo's most significant digital release here, with monthly figures outstripping the combined digital sales of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate and Pokemon Sword and Shield, which is insane. It's actually the most monthly digital sales of any game ever, and that's a record that was previously held by Call of Duty Black Ops 4. So that's absolutely incredible for them. Now, Doom Eternal, of course, it's a launch buddy. It had a great month as well, with an estimated 3 million digital copies being sold, which actually tripled Doom 2016's launch performance. Then Eternal's physical sales were actually down 1/3 on its predecessor for the opening weekend, but I mean, that does make sense, right? It does just go to show how many players are buying things digitally. And of course, with everything going on the planet right now, yeah, I doubt they were just rushing out to the shops. And next, an update on a game that I'm extremely hyped for, and that is Baldurs Gate 3. Dev work has slowed down, but it is still on track for early access this year. That is what they told the New York Times this week. So the CEO of Larian confirmed that basically the studio have been struggling a little bit to overcome the challenges that are posed by remote working and the closure of some of their external partners, but that the team is still operating at about 70 to 80% of its normal productivity. Obviously, that's not ideal, but Larian, they did say in February that the game's early access release was only a couple of months away, and despite various roadblocks, that the team, they actually do seem to be on track to deliver. That's what they said, so good stuff. I really, really want to play that game. I mean, I need to find some time to play that game, but certainly a big RPG like that, I mean, I think that would just hit the spot. Next up, something for GameStop. Basically, right, in Italy, Germany, and Austria, they are trying to reopen as soon as they can, and the same actually goes for South Carolina and Georgia soon after that. Potentially to the point of jumping the gun with when they want to open, like really do it as soon as they can, which is obviously not surprising given that, GameStop pretty much tried to hold on, right, stay open, even when it seemingly wasn't legal for them to do so. Now, in terms of why, I mean, yeah, the execs are probably not happy with their 30% pay cut, and the one that the CEO had a 50% pay cut, so they probably want to, get everything back up and running, which is obviously understandable for just about every business. But yeah, in this case, it's just, I mean, given how they went into this current crisis and how they seemingly want to go, out of it as soon as they can, a little bit rough. But of course, there is also the other side of that, where the sooner those stores reopen, then the sooner their staff actually, get to go work and get their wage. But then at the same time, if that is too early, then it's putting those staff at risk. So right now, I'm not an epidemiologist. I'm not going to play one on the internet, but there is some concern out there that GameStop would basically just be too aggro here, jump the gun, and open too early. And then finally, for today's news, Fallout 76's new Wastelanders NPCs have been, they've been doing some malarkey, right? On occasion, when a player dies during an event, the NPC companions have just, looted their corpse, right? Taken their weapon and ammo, I believe. And you can't get them back afterwards. So if you had a really nice, rare weapon or crafting material, bye. Not ideal, and it's not clear what triggers this, and Bethesda are working on a fix, but it certainly is one of Fallout 76's more entertaining bugs, and really it does just go to show. I mean, when you rely on your community to release the unofficial patch that basically fixes your game, and if you want more on that, we did do a video on that whole topic, but, if that's what you rely on, and then you release a game that basically can't be modded because it's a live service, yeah. Turns out that regular Bethesda level of bugginess just sort of bites you in the ass, doesn't it? Anyway, there you go. That is it for today's Video, so many stories. Wow, what a packed episode. Of course, if you want to support what we are doing and videos like what we did yesterday, the more deeper dive into Take-Two's business model, that was really fun. We were a bunch of recent interviews with Strauss, old interviews with Strauss from the E3 era last year, just piecing it all together. Pretty cool one, but, you know, obviously the sort of thing that does not do well on YouTube at all and does come at a loss. So if you want to support content like that existing, the Patreon's the place to do that. You'll get the daily briefing. And also, if you want some sweet physical loots, then, hey, you can see what our game dev team has been up to in the Patreon side. Anyway, thank you for all of your support. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you next time.